You're listening to the Platform Launchers podcast. I'm John Stange, and it's great to have you with us again this week. This week, we are going to be talking about writing, and we're going to be talking about the hidden value of producing written content. And I was just enjoying a great conversation with our members club. Like I mentioned, almost every week, they are live right here on the call with me as I record this podcast. There's a group of people right here on the call. It's kind of a unique context to record a podcast in because it's in front of a live studio audience, you could say, but I find it really enjoyable. And we were talking about some wins that we had with our platforms. We were talking about some goals that we have coming up and some things that we're going to be working on. And one of the things that I know that a lot of our members in our members club are utilizing would happen to be written content. So some are utilizing that for their blogs. Some are using that for social media. Some are using that for a series of books. And I want to take a little time for our podcast this week just to talk about the hidden value of producing written content, because I suspect that there are a lot of people that don't quite realize in this video and audio age that there's a lot of value in written content as well. And I want to give you some examples of what I'm talking about in just a minute. But when I was in high school, I was required to take a typing class. And now I don't know how common classes like that are in present day schools. They might not be quite as common as they were when I was growing up, when I was in high school. But during my youth, that was relatively typical for a school to offer some sort of a typing class that, would ultimately teach you the basics of typing. Our typing classes happen to be done on these very large, heavy electric typewriters. Now, I imagine they'd be done on some form of a computer, whether it be a desktop or a laptop, whatever it may be. But it was a relatively typical thing at the time for a typing class to be offered at a high school. And I remember at first, I wasn't sure what to think about that class. I don't think I was immediately convinced that it would have much value. I also did not foresee that being a skill that I would use in my future profession. In fact, when I think about it, it actually cracks me up when I think about my early perspective toward that typing class, because the thoughts that I had that it might not be useful couldn't have been more wrong. In fact, when I think back to my high school years, I can't think of a class that better prepared me for this season of life more than that typing class. The skills that I learned in that typing class have been immensely helpful, far beyond the years of having to take that. Now, let me paint a picture of what that class was like. Our teacher taught us to position our fingers on the keyboard. That was kind of lesson one. Put your fingers in the right spot. Everything he said I'm going to teach you is going to come from correct finger placement on that keyboard. So we had to place our fingers on the keyboard in the correct fashion. He also helped us improve our typing speed as the year went on. He also forced us to keep our heads and our faces looking up. He didn't want us looking at our keyboards. He didn't want us looking at the typewriter in any fashion while we were typing. And he wanted us to keep eye contact with him. He wanted us to look forward. Basically, what I remember about that class, our teacher had a very strict and stern personality, and he ran it like it was a typing boot camp. So those of you who have been through an actual boot camp will probably laugh at that comparison, but it really was like that. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised to discover that some form of boot camp was in that teacher's background, but that's how he ran the class. And again, I wasn't sure what to think of it, but by the end of the school year, most of us who were in that class, if we took it seriously, and he didn't really give you much of an option not to take it seriously, most of us finished that school year with a strong ability to type. We were fast, we were accurate, and we did not need to stare at the rows of keys in order to produce content. And I have to tell you that since that time, I have used that skill essentially, I would suppose, every day of my adult life. I can't think of a day during my adult life where that skill did not come in handy in one way or another. So even when I was in college, typed countless papers in college. Each week, as I'm preparing sermon notes for my church, I type my speaking notes, and so I'm doing that for quite a long time during the course of the week. I'm also regularly typing blog content and book content that gets shared with a wider audience. Very important skill, very valuable, super glad that I was forced to learn it. I didn't have a choice. I had to learn it. But here's the thing. Admittedly, not everyone is a strong typer. Not everyone has gone through a class like that or been forced to sit for an entire school year in ninth grade going through some sort of training like that. And in many contexts, I've also been told that the idea of writing intimidates a lot of people. So for that reason, because some people find it intimidating to write, and some people find it intimidating to think about typing for a long period of time, because for those reasons, I know people who resist creating written content altogether. They just don't even have it on their radar. It's not something that they're thinking about. It's not something that they're processing. Basically, they don't want to write and they don't want to type. They don't want to formulate their thoughts for the printed page. And I would even say it's possible that many do not see the direct value in utilizing written communication within their online platforms. So let me ask the question this way. What's the value of producing written content for your online platform? What's the value? Why is it valuable? Well, I think it's valuable in a variety of ways, but I'm going to list a few that stand out to me right away. And I want you to hear me on these because I think that they all matter. First of all, written content is one of the most effective ways to make your platform discoverable. And I'll give you a very specific example, blogging. Blogging in particular is rather helpful because every time you create a blog post with a searchable title that helps a reader solve a specific problem, you're building a very highly valuable piece of online real estate. Blog content is one of the primary ways that people discover the two platforms together. People discover it all the time from blog content. I give my blog posts titles that mirror what I think people will be searching for online. Those of you that have taken the launch plan course that I put together have seen that that's something that I highly, highly recommend, that you give your blog posts titles that mirror what people are going to be searching for in a search engine. And basically what I end up discovering is that once someone finds a link to my blog, I'm able to invite them to then join my email list, sometimes by utilizing something valuable in a lead magnet or something like that. But when somebody's then in my email list, I'm also able to introduce them into my entire ecosystem of content. And that all begins with written content. It makes your entire platform discoverable online, blogging being one of the main ways that people find online content by searching for different things, just using a search engine. All right, number 2 on my list, why written content is so valuable, and that's this. It can be a very fast way to establish authority in your area of expertise. Now, I already mentioned just a few moments ago, many people are resistant toward creating written content. But that can, in a ironic way, be to your advantage, because that means only a small portion of people, only a small segment of the population actually bothers to create it. So if you're part of that small population that is actually creating written content, you have a very noticeable advantage when you're trying to build an online platform, because once you create enough of it, they will begin to see you as an authority on the subjects that you write about. And if you turn your writing, especially into a book, even a short book, I was talking to one of our newer members who has the ambition to eventually write a shorter book to help her with her day-to-day business. And one of the things that I said to her was, if you turn your writing into a book, even a short book, your perceived authority in your area of expertise, it will grow exponentially. Because most people in this world have the desire to write a book. Very few people actually do it. And those that do it have the opportunity to establish authority in their chosen area of expertise. It's a great tool when you have a book to land interviews. I was just offered an opportunity earlier today. I won't go into the details of it, but it's directly related to a book that I have coming out next month. And a book is a great tool to help you land interviews. It's a great tool to help you get referrals. It's a great tool to ultimately result in you getting invited to be part of conferences and events and things like that, that you probably never would have been invited to participate in without the necessary proof of authority that your writing, that your written content helped you generate. So just keep that in mind. It can help you generate authority. All right, number 3, why written content is so valuable. Number 3 on my list is this. It provides a form of evergreen monetization. Just think about that. Well, what do I mean by evergreen monetization? Well, I'm talking about something that goes on and on and on and on without really any end in sight. And I say this, I'm making this statement not to boast and not to brag, but just to hopefully inspire within you that this is possible, not just for me. It's possible for all of us. There isn't a single day, literally, I mean this literally, there is not a single day that I am not earning income from written content. It has been years and years and years since I have had a day where I wasn't earning some level of income from written content. And the reason being is because I have turned so much of my writing into self-published books and other things like that that are purchased or downloaded online every single day of the week. And by the way, I'll just throw this in there as some added information. Amazon has their Kindle Unlimited program, and there are many people that subscribe to that where they can get an unlimited amount of ebooks each month. And what Amazon does is those people that download those books through their Kindle Unlimited program, for each page they read of your book, if your book is one of the ones they download, Amazon pays you per page. And so sometimes people don't even directly buy your book. They just download your book through that Kindle Unlimited program, and Amazon just pays you for page reads. And that happens every single day, especially once you put enough helpful content out there. It starts generating interest in other books. If someone likes one thing you wrote, maybe they'll go check out another book by you, et cetera, et cetera. I am always in the process of writing new material. I do that all the time. It's just part of my routine. I like doing it. But I have to tell you, I'm very grateful, very thankful for the fact that books that I wrote a decade ago continue to perform well. And from a financial standpoint, I look at it like this. It's rather nice to consider that work that I did one time allows me to be paid many times, potentially for the rest of my life. As long as those books continue to generate some level of interest, I have the opportunity to be paid from my writing for the rest of my life. And I say this hopefully to encourage you and to show you what is possible, because you could also be experiencing the same kind of financial benefit if you consistently produce written content. All right, number 4 on my list is this. I like to give you lists each week, so I hope that this is easy to keep in mind and process. I have 3 more things, number 4, 5, and 6. Here's number 4. Number 4, why I think written content is so valuable when you're developing an online platform, is that it allows you to convey your thoughts more clearly because it requires time and editing. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about with that. So whenever I'm trying to communicate something important, particularly in subject areas that might be sensitive in nature, I actually like to begin by writing my thoughts down, because that forces me to give more thought to what I'm trying to say. It also gives me a good chance to edit my words before they're delivered. And oftentimes when I'm delivering words in other contexts, I don't really get that chance to edit before some things come out of my mouth or get recorded. But with written content, I get the chance to process it a little bit, to think about it, and then edit it before those words get delivered. I've actually read, I'm a big fan of President Abraham Lincoln, and I've actually read many stories of President Lincoln choosing to write out his thoughts in handwritten letters when he had to address either a sensitive subject or a difficult topic, or maybe even somebody that he wanted to confront about something that was a little bit of a difficult thing to talk about. And some of those letters were actually found in his desk unsent after he died. And many of them went unsent because after he wrote them and had time to process his thoughts, he realized that his words might unnecessarily discourage the intended recipient. And so he held back on delivering them. Written content gives you the chance to think about things a little bit, gives you the chance to pause before you deliver that content, even gives you the chance to edit before you make it public to the world. And I think that's a very special benefit that illustrates the value of written content. But here's number 5 on my list. Written content, I have found, can become a very effective springboard to additional forms of content. So I'm convinced that most platform-related content would actually benefit from being initially created in written form. I think podcast episodes would often be clearer if the host was utilizing some form of written notes or at least an outline. I think courses could be put together from a series of blog posts that are well thought out and edited and processed and published. I think coaching and training could also follow a more productive framework if a plan of action was written down ahead of time. I think in some cases it could actually follow or make better use of the time if that kind of framework was thought through before the coaching or the training took place. And so I think written content really can be an effective springboard to additional forms of content. But here's another one. This is number 6 on my list, but it might be the one that I consider the most special on this list. When you think about the value of written content, one of the things that makes it so special is that it will outlast you. And when you write something down, it allows you to speak to generations that will come after you. This is one of my favorite realizations. When I thought about this at one point, I thought, I thought about it when I was writing my book, Dwell on These Things, because I use a lot of personal stories in that book. And I thought, there are generations of people who live long after our time that are going to have the opportunity to see this content and to read this content and to think about this. I was thinking about it in particular with, maybe my great-grandchildren or even my great-great-grandchildren or anyone that might come from my family lineage that would have the opportunity to read these stories and read these insights and lessons that I don't get the opportunity, to meet personally, but yet my ideas and my insights will outlast my natural life and hopefully bring benefit to the lives of those who receive that information, sometime in the future, if I just take time to write it down. And if you are someone that has a thought process that kind of operates like that, I want you to think about that. I mean, written content really does allow you to speak to generations that are going to be around here long after our time is finished. And it's kind of special to think that you get to pass on your insights and your ideas and the wisdom that God's blessed you with to a generation of people that you didn't get to meet personally. Now, saying all that, right, I gave you 6 reasons why I think that there's a high degree of value to written content. But let me say this, even before we finish up. Again, I realize that writing comes easily for some people, and I would put myself in that category. I do think writing at this point comes easily for me, but I also know that there are many others who don't necessarily find writing quite as easy. Now, I do believe that when it comes to writing, practice makes perfect. So if you're somebody that's writing and trying to get proficient at writing, I think the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, especially as you edit and get feedback and things like that and start putting that content out there. But the more you write, the better you get at writing, the faster new ideas will start coming to you when you sit down in front of a keyboard or a computer. But again, in the meantime, if you don't feel like presently you're a strong writer, or maybe not even someone who up to this point has been convinced that there was as much lasting value in writing, I actually want to end with a couple quick suggestions that might make the process easier for you if you don't automatically feel like you gravitate toward producing written content. 2 quick suggestions that I hope will help. The first suggestion is this. Just start by writing down your big idea. So let's say you have an idea for a blog post or a book chapter or something that you want to teach about or whatever it may be. Start by writing down your big idea. Or maybe I could ask it this way. What problem are you trying to solve? So whatever your big idea is or whatever problem you're trying to solve, the big point of whatever you're trying to communicate, just write that down. Just boil it down to a primary idea and write that concept down on your paper or type it on your screen, whatever you want it, wherever you want to place it. And once you're clear on your big idea, then take a moment to outline several subpoints that will operate like steps or like a ladder that can help the reader reach the primary objective that you've communicated in your big idea statement. So you're just writing out the big idea, and then you're writing a few subpoints that go under that kind of work like a ladder to that big idea. And when you have that big idea and you have those subpoints, basically what you've done is you've created essentially the skeleton of your article or the skeleton of your blog post or your chapter, whatever you're going to use it for. And once you have the skeleton in place, it's not quite as difficult to put some meat on the bones. You just build the skeleton first, the big idea, the main points, and then just go back to those main points and start putting some meat on the bones, meaning go back and elaborate on your subpoints by adding a paragraph or two per point. And before you know it, when you look at it, you'll have a full-fledged article. So a lot of times I find it easy to write if I outline what I'm planning to say first. Just build the skeleton, big idea, main points, and then go back and put some meat on the bones with those paragraphs. But here's one other suggestion that I think can make it a little bit easier if you're not someone who finds producing written content particularly easy. And that's using a speech to text tool. I don't know if you've ever used that. Well, probably if you have a smartphone, you've probably used it to some degree. If you've ever spoken something into your phone and had your phone type out a text, sometimes my phone does a great job in transcribing what I'm saying. Sometimes it doesn't. But there are a lot of tools that offer speech to text options. And if you're someone who genuinely dreads the writing process, or if you find yourself staring at a blank screen for an abnormal period of time, a good speech to text tool can be a very helpful solution. I will tell you, I can't use the name of this person, but I got to know someone a couple of years ago, just casually. I don't know him super well. But he has I would say, a decently popular book. And he admitted that he had a very hard time writing it in a traditional way. And so what he decided to do was just speak it out, use like a speech to text option, and then hire an editor to help him clean up the content that he produced. And it's been a very highly popular book for him for I think he released it more than 5 years ago now, and he's built an entire business around that book, and it's been really neat to see how he utilized a speech to text tool to actually build what became a very popular best-selling book. And that book has gone very, very far places, and I think it amazes him when he thinks about how it actually came to be a book. He didn't sit down and type it all out; he spoke it out, and then had an editor help him clean up the text. And he said he got it done really, really quickly that way. And I would say this, if you do utilize the speech to text option, I would still recommend writing out a basic outline first, just to keep your thoughts on track as you speak. So get your big idea, get your outline in place, but then just speak the meat onto the bones of whatever outline you put in place. Again, I'll say this as we finish up here. Written content is one of the benchmarks of my platforms. I host 2 different platforms, and written content is a benchmark of both platform. And so if you're in the process of developing a platform, if you're thinking about building one, if you've got one underway, but you haven't utilized a lot of written content, I actually hope to encourage you to consider adding more written content to your platform if you're looking to build great ways to foster a long-term connection with your audience and maybe even develop some evergreen forms of monetization that help fund the work you're doing. Written content, it is valuable. I can't stress that enough. It's highly, highly, highly valuable, and it's not something that needs to be overcomplicated when we think about the process of producing it. You could produce it easier than you think that you might be able to. And once you get it created, it's not work you need to go back and redo usually. It's usually something that you create once, and then there it exists for the rest of your life. And hopefully it will be a blessing to many people. Hopefully it'll help solve a lot of problems. And hopefully it'll be a blessing to you as it connects you to the people that you're attempting to serve. And it gives you an opportunity to serve in a meaningful way. Thank you so much for being with us this week. Again, like I mentioned every week, if you want to take a visit to platformlaunchers.com, when you're on our website, you can take a free test drive of everything that we offer there. We offer a 14-day free test drive on platformlaunchers.com. You could visit our members club. You could join us live for our calls. You could see our vast training vault of previous resources that will show you exactly how to build, grow, and monetize an online platform. I would highly encourage you, if you're trying to figure out how to do this, save yourself a lot of time. Just go to the website, take the free trial, see if it's right for you, and then join us in the group. And if it's something that you want to stick around with long-term, great. If it's something you want to use just till the free trial expires, no harm, no foul. We're happy to offer that to you. We hope that you find it beneficial. But that's it for us this week, and we look forward to catching up with you again next week. And I'll tell you what, we got some surprises coming with the podcast this coming month. So keep your ears open. Some really cool things from our members that are going to be showing up in the next few weeks. And I can't wait to unveil it. But in the meantime, we'll catch you next time.